Hello, friends. Welcome to Heartforward, Conversations from the Heart. Most of us, no matter where we live in California, are hearing candidates for public office talk about their big plans to build more housing to address our crisis of homelessness. You will hear reference to permanent supportive housing or transitional housing or tiny homes. What you will not hear anyone talk about is a type of housing that is intended for people who require a higher level of support than, say, permanent supportive housing. What I am referring to are board and care beds. In California, the state licenses adult residential facilities for people who require more assistance with the so-called activities of daily living. Meals are provided, laundry is done, medications are dispensed, and people will often share a room with another person. Now, this is not my ideal vision of what I would hope for. Congregate living in a family-style environment with support, socialization, and meaningful things to do each day. But it is what we have right now, and these precious beds are shrinking at an alarming rate. I'll link some articles and reports from the state and from LA City and LA County, which documents this slow-motion train wreck. This episode shines a light on Psynergy, what I would call the gold standard for a board and care home in California. You'll hear Lynda Kaufman describe one of their facilities in Morgan Hill, California, and discuss their plans to open another in the Sacramento area. And I think after listening, you will agree that we need more entrepreneurs like Michael Weinstein, along with investors and advocates in local governments, to come alongside these business people to reverse the decline and replicate the Psynergy model throughout the state. Good morning. I am so delighted to have here today in the podcast studio Lynda Kaufman and Michael Weinstein from Psynergy. They're here in Los Angeles this week, and I was able to snag them for a conversation about what I consider to be one of the North Stars in California for how people who live with a mental illness have a hospitable, compassionate, human-centered place to live, something that inspires us here in LA, and we're going to learn more about Psynergy. So welcome to you both. We're going to talk about Psynergy and the business model and the guiding principles that undergird what it is that you do in Northern California. But let's talk first about just the origin story of this idea that you had. Michael, I'm going to start with you because I know that this is something that was kind of your inspiration many years ago. And then we'll talk about how the two of you came to be connected and your background, your origin story leading up to that. So Michael, tell us about you and this dream that you had many years ago.
Well, it goes back to 2001. And we learned that there was an RFP going out by Santa Clara County to run a recently rehabbed facility that they had. And they were looking for an organization to run this new program. And it was going to be basically what they called super board and care. And it's a licensed facility where people would come typically from locked settings and to help them transition back to the community. And I was very new in mental health. I had no mental health background, but I had recently come to California to help a friend run his business, and he was running a very mom and pop, board and care. And initially, when I moved to California, I didn't have a place to live, so I actually ended up living in the facility with the clients.
You were living in the board and care home.
I was,
yes.
And I really had not even been exposed to the population before. So it was very different. And then at one point I got left actually to run the business for my friend. He moved out of the area and just left me with the business to run.
So that was a small home-centered board and care.
But it was a group of homes. They had actually quite a large population there. They had about 60 people in a licensed setting, and then they also had what they called their independent living setting as well. People that could move to that setting and live more independently. So there were about 100 clients of this organization. And as I said, it was when I got left to run the business on my own, I really started to make a lot of changes and things that I felt that were important to me. And
so that, let me just press pause there for a moment, because as we enter this podcast, people may not be familiar with board-in cares and what it means to be a licensed facility. And it is something that I always like to set the context and, address the acronyms, et cetera. So can we just, for a moment, what does it mean to be a licensed facility in California? It sounds so institutional. And what is a board-in care technically?
So licensed boarding care is an adult residential facility licensed under community care licensing, which falls under the Department of Social Services. So that means you have to meet some certain standards about water temperature, how much space for closet space, dresser space, how you pass medications. It's support and supervision. You support individuals, and you also, provide supervision for them too.
So, and this is the state of California that does the licensing. And correct. So going back to this series of homes that your friend left you with, Michael, was it a privately run organization, like his own private company?
It was his private company. Okay. And they had started it many, many years before. And different family members had run it over the years. And I said it was a great opportunity for me because I could kind of be creative and bring some of the ideas I had, that I really wanted to do, that I'd watched and, the previous years from the time I started, things I really wanted to change. And it was a great opportunity. I got to meet a lot of great people in mental health. And and so that gave me like kind of the opportunity to see what could be done, with a very limited budget, of course. But I started with basic things like making the place immaculate. That was, I said, people have to live in a clean environment. And I thought about, if I were not doing well, if I were sick or, not doing well, what kinds of things would really help me heal? And this was out, I said, any background or training, and just thinking from a human perspective. And one of them was living in a clean environment. And I actually went in the rooms and started cleaning them myself. And I employed a lot of the residents. Some of the residents were doing very well and are living more independently. They became, we employed them and to do cleaning and to run activities and supervise a lot of things that were not getting supervision for our clients. And so I would go in there and clean rooms and prepare them. And I said, people need to start off in a really clean environment. And it was from there to the food service, and it completely, changed that. And I said, we need to serve healthy food. It has to be well thought out. And I was just really unhappy with the food service there. And I couldn't eat the food. And I said, and it was very unhealthy. And unfortunately, our clients typically get, in the most boarding cares and typical meals are not healthy.
No, and they also have a very limited budget, maybe more limited now than back when you were starting, but still limited.
Yeah, and people tend to like comfort foods, but those are not always the best things for you. And we've learned a lot about mental health over the years, and there are types of diets that are really beneficial. So it was doing food from scratch and using a lot more fresh vegetables and getting rid of all the bread, and the things that just were lots heavy carbs. And so that was a big focus. But I learned a lot, about, over those first few years about things I wanted to do differently. And then when we got this opportunity, when this, RP came out from Santa Clara County, I knew what I wanted to do. And we were the only really boarding care that was trying to get this contract. We were up against some very stiff competition, big providers. I didn't know anything about Medi-Cal. We didn't deal with that at all. I didn't, so it was a very complicated contract we had to put together. I did get some help along the way, and actually Lynda was one of the people that was brought in to help write this proposal. But the basic, ideas of how it was going to be run, and it was very different than what they wanted. But in the end, we won this proposal, and they really liked my ideas. I guess they thought they were fresh and different, and it was very successful.
So I've never heard this part of the story before. This is pretty fascinating. Let me understand. This is almost like a David and Goliath kind of thing, basically. So you had larger institutional providers who would look at this as an opportunity just to expand their array of beds, and then you were this kind of upstart, running a humble little board and care system. At that time, was it Psynergy? Was that the name, or was it like under the name of your friend's company?
It was under the name of my friend's company.
Okay.
And so I was actually working as an employee for him at the time when we won this proposal. And there were some things that I wanted to do. For example, they saw this operating with the board and care part, and then clients getting services from another provider. I wanted it all under one roof. So that was one of my, the first things that I felt was really important, because in dealing with mental health, I just felt we didn't get enough professional help for our clients, and that would really add to the whole, possibilities, and also so that professionals actually could see the clients in their environment where they were living. Because it's very different than how when you go to a doctor's office and how you present as to how when a doctor gets to actually see you interacting and, with the other clients, and how you're actually really doing, and, are you having problems getting out of bed in the morning, whatever. So in our proposal, even the psychiatrists, we had our own doctor, we had our own therapists, we had our own professional staff, and it was all under one roof. So that was a really unique, concept. And that's something that we've, continued when I started my own business down the road. That we brought those ideas, along with us.
So you won that contract, and under your friend's company, in essence, took over this rehab center that Santa Clara County had. It kind of took a risk on you, and did it pay off for Santa Clara County?
It was very, very successful. We actually reduced numbers substantially coming from the locked settings, because one of the things that I was able to do is when our clients actually graduated from that program, we actually transitioned a lot of them into our regular board and care. And for example, a year later, we had moved 22 clients successfully after we opened up, and a year later, all those clients were still in the community. Mm-hmm. So that was a huge thing. These people were coming in typically in and out of locked settings. And because we really put them through a program where they really developed some skills, and then continue that with least restrictive setting and not as organized, but still we kept a lot of the fundamental things the same. And in essence, I said a year later, everyone was doing well. So those were and that type of thing is what really helped bring their numbers down in locked settings for the county. So they were, elated with how the program was going.
So armed now with your previous experience, and I think it's amazing that you actually lived in a board and care. There's a lot of companies that will make their CEOs like flip burgers at McDonald's, or, make sandwiches at Subway. But you actually had that experience, and then you fashioned this proposal for Santa Clara County. It was awarded. You could get it started. When then did you then make the leap to starting your own company?
Well, it's an interesting story. I ended up actually leaving my friend's company after 8 years, and I took some time off. And then I got together with a few of the professionals that I'd met, during my time in mental health, and we actually formed our own company called Psynergy. And we formed.
What year would that have been?
What now?
What year would that have been?
That was in 2004.
Okay.
Yeah, and then we started to look around for opportunities, and my partners wanted to go do something small. I said, if we're going to do it, let's do it big, And so we got this amazing opportunity that a very large provider in Santa Clara County had been renting a very large older campus for many, many years. And they decided to move out of, that facility, and then it became available. And the owners, it was not an easy thing to find a new tenant for. But it was just all timing. And this, really great property, which was the Morgan Hill property, which we now have, became available, and we signed a lease. And, little did they know we had, $25,000 in the bank. That was about it.
Where did the money come from?
Yeah.
And you're a banker, Lynda.
Well, Lynda was one of our, angel investors initially. So we different people, ponied up and helped us get the thing going. And one of the founding members, Kitty Palmer, who had a very good connection with Tulare County, she actually got us our first contract. And, it was really, due to Kitty's connection there that really got us off and running, because we were in Santa Clara County and we couldn't get a contract with Santa Clara.
So let's maybe Lynda, you can explain that part of it, because I have been interested to know that Psynergy has
probably not.
Well, Psynergy has contracts with 22 counties, 26 now. So this notion that an adult residential facility seeks residents from throughout the state or throughout the region is almost counterintuitive. You would think you would be serving people in your own neighborhood, as it were. But so that, as a business model, you have to be able to line up residents or guests.
Correct.
Yeah. And the fact that you had to go to another county to start this business in Santa Clara County is so counterintuitive.
And I think that Tulare County, I mean, they may seem like a small kind of out there Central Valley county, which I actually know that county because my grandmother was born in Nueva, so I actually, oddly enough, enjoy that particular county. I think they had some really forward-thinking, people there. Like, this is what's possible. This is, how much money you can save moving clients from those higher level IMDs, MHRCs.
Okay, acronyms.
Institutions for mental disease. That's a federal term. MHRC is a mental health rehabilitation center.
And how do those differ from a board and care setting?
Unlocked. Unlocked is one of the largest differentiations.
Board and cares are unlocked. The other two are locked.
Correct.
Yes.
Correct. So, I think you had to find somebody who had vision, and maybe Santa Clara didn't. I will say that we have, oftentimes tried to go and approach them. I've replied to RFPs with them, and they have had a high turnover in their administration, and sometimes that makes it a little bit more challenging. And yes, we contract with all the counties surrounding Santa Clara, but not actually Santa Clara County Behavioral Health at this time. And changes happen. New people come in, new administration. And so it's always my hope that they will someday contract. But right now they still do not. Now we are just signing our 26th county contract with Placer County. And I think one of the things that makes us a little bit different from other larger providers is sometimes they only have one or two clients that need that level of support. And some providers are like, nope, it's either 5, 10, or nothing. It's like, it's not worth it for them. I feel like, saying that means that one person is not worth it. So we do a contract for one client, one county. So I think that's a little distinguishing difference between some other larger providers. They have like a minimum client requirement to have a contract.
So I'm going back to the origins of Psynergy, and I'm fascinated. You said you had $25,000 in the bank. You're leasing this camp. It's a beautiful campus. I don't know
now
if I could. Yeah. I don't think I could sleep at night if I were entering this business deal. You're lining up some residents, some contracts. And this is the moment, Michael, where you can actually start to instill a vision and a culture that will then permeate the future. So as you were defining in those very early days what kind of culture you wanted to achieve there and what your vision was, how would you describe that?
Well, I said that the campus was really, really set up. If you visited Morgan Hill, and there's several buildings. And it was really set up to really house, my previous vision was to have everything kind of under one roof. I mean, it's not necessarily under one roof, but on the same campus in different buildings. But the idea of being able to have our clinic, on site and have all of our professionals there and having space there for clients to have lots of fresh air and outdoor space and different places where they could get together outside and have some privacy here or there. The property really lends itself to that. And so the ideas that I had that I'd started from my friend back at his facility of, doing like lots of fresh produce and, using organic vegetables when we could and really bringing in nutritionists and paying a lot of attention to diet and keeping the facility, always looking good and having lots of people cleaning and having a lot of professionals around and really making it a healing environment. That was the whole idea. And so even we started off we found a great woman that came in that was a therapist, and she did pet therapy and brought her dogs a couple times a week. And, the clients loved that, And then we developed our equine program, which we can talk about later as well. But there's just a lot of pieces that little things that were important to me that I think that have helped make the program successful. And it's paying attention to details.
And your founders at that time, your partners agreed with you. Were there any tussles like, do we really have to have the fresh vegetables or can't we buy canned? Like, what were some of the disagreements in the early days? I
think maybe some of the spending I wanted to do, like on furnishings and landscaping, perhaps I pushed those things. But in the end, they let me do that. We actually shared the same vision. This group of people, we became involved together because we kind of had the same kind of beliefs of how to treat people in general. So,
Lynda, I have visited Morgan Hill. I visited with you back in 2017, but maybe you could paint a picture for us right now, walk people through, the listeners, what it is like to experience this campus and what might distinguish the Morgan Hill Psynergy campus from a traditional board and care that you might see. Because I know you have visited them all over the state. Yeah.
Oh, no, I have. I visited a lot of them. So I think one of the first things immediately you notice is our landscaping. So it's a large, it was originally built as a 1958 skilled nursing facility for the Sisters of St. Louis. So if you kind of picture that old kind of U-shaped building with a courtyard in the middle. So I think the first things you notice when you walk into our doors is everything is kind of contemporary. And I think that's our design, the beautifulness of it. And then there's when you go through the door, there's a help desk. It is the hospitality desk. And it always has a staff there that is going to support the clients. Where do I get my food? Or how do I go here? Or is there a map? Or whatever, a lot of them don't have somebody there to answer the questions of clients. And they might be, the same question over and over. We try to print out our program so that we can just hand it to them. I mean, if you think of a cruise ship, every time you walk out of your cabin, you get a program of the day and what's happening. And so one of the biggest changes I appreciate, we used to be only able to have maybe 8 or 10% of our clients with incontinence. When we changed the flooring, I don't know, probably 2016, 17. All of a sudden, it was we could, support more individuals coming from a secured lock setting that had incontinence issues. And incontinence is one of the greatest barriers to accepting somebody. It's a lot of work. It's a lot of cleaning. It costs, staff support, laundry. So once we had that new flooring, Mike can tell you what kind it is. I don't know, but it's wonderful. It's beautiful, and it doesn't absorb smells. So it never smells like an old, dirty, urine-infested building.
Institution, yes,
exactly. Mm-hmm. So as you go down the hallways, they're long hallways. We decided to separate where the building cuts off, and we have all female residents within line of sight of that help desk. And it's just to make them feel safe, supported, safe. So I appreciate that. Then you go to the back of the building. We have a multi-purpose room. We have a kitchen, so we can have groups there. It has been challenging the last 2 years, and it continues to be challenging. Restrictions have not been lifted from community care licensing in a lot of ways. So that continues to be a little bit of a challenge. And then we have a beautiful courtyard. And our courtyard has a built-in barbecue, so that's wonderful. You can sit outside. Our staff eat with our residents. That's wonderful. And then we have a gazebo with a lot of chairs and a beautiful fireplace that we're not allowed to light. It's kind of silly. And then
the county won't let you light the fireplace?
Community care licensing does not like the fireplace lit.
Oh, boy.
Certain rules about it.
Good old bureaucracy. Yeah.
But there's a gas fireplace next to it. But the fireplace or a gas, barbecue. So, and then you go into, so we have 2 important rooms on the other side of the courtyard. One is a beautiful living room. I love our living room because it's somewhere that we really don't do groups. It's for socialization. It's for watching a DVD or a movie together, playing games. We have a lot of card games in there and a little library. And then the program office is adjacent to that. And one of the things I've always appreciated about our program office from the very beginning, from 2005 on, we've never put up curtains or blinds. There's a transparency, which I'm sure is an overused word, but I like that our clients can see what's going on. I worked at an MHRC for 2 years, and I think it's really one of the better ones, but constantly, clients knocking on the door. They want to be seen, they want to be heard. And And so I appreciate that. And then if you go through that living room into our kitchen, we don't have fryers. We have really very little storage space for food. We get food delivered daily, which is, I have to go around the cars all the time, so I know that they're daily. So, it's Watsonville produce. It's like real food, real produce, and it's delivered often. The cost of that has gone up a lot in the last year. I'm sure you can imagine with inflation and, just gas prices. So that's our kitchen, our dining room. And then in the back of the property is the Palmer House, named after Kitty Palmer, which Mike just mentioned. So, and you've been in there, but originally that is where we all lived on campus. Mike lived there, Arturo lived there, I lived there, Kitty Palmer. My old office was my old bedroom. Because when you're starting out, like, it is
you
about as grassroots.
24/7.
You do. So on call, night shift.
So just for a moment, we did not connect the dots on how you know each other, because you did say at the beginning she helped you with the Santa Clara proposal, but then somehow you snagged her. So, and Lynda, I think you were a banker, right?
I was. So I grew up in Los Angeles, in Hollywood, and I was started as a teller when I was 17 until my late 30s, early 40s. Kind of moved up and became a branch manager. And then I moved to Ithaca, New York for a couple of years. And then my family and I moved back to Santa Cruz. And my sister-in-law, one of her good friends, was the family that Mike was working for. And so I didn't have a job. It's like, well, I can write pretty well. At least I can take complicated ideas and I think translate them to exactly what you're talking about, understandable layman's. So we worked on that project together and they got the contract. And so then they hired me as an admin assistant. So I think for me, I learned well from going in, at the ground floor and then learning everything up. I really am fortunate that Mike was the administrator. I was the admin assistant. Then I became an assistant administrator. And so I've never known anything but quality. So it's when I see things that are not as nice, it's like, well, you can do that. If we could do it, you could do it. Because we really did start off as a small SSI boarding care, straight Social Security. And then we, have added the layers to it.
So I have visited a lot of board and cares as well. I have one in particular I've kind of adopted, and I've offered to donate furniture there. And she says, I don't want anything to come in. I'm afraid of bed bugs, right? You walk into your living room at Psynergy, Morgan Hill, there's leather couches there. It looks better than my family room, right? And so I have that, and then I compare to some new permanent supportive housing that I've seen built here in LA, where they have beautiful community rooms that are locked. They don't want people to enter them, or they can only enter them from 2 to 3 on Tuesdays and Thursdays. So tell me about that value, Michael, of having this very welcoming, looks like home environment, and how do people treat it?
The clients actually take an interest. I think when you give them a nicer environment, and it's part of the learning process of for our clients coming from these locked settings where they're really not treated with, I believe, the same respect, and then giving them something nice, and then encouraging them, saying this is your home, and take care of it. And we also know at the same time that nothing lasts forever. If you have a hotel lobby, for example, things get worn out. And we always approach everything thinking, well, if this lasts, 2, 3, 4 years, that's wonderful. And then we want to, put new stuff in. And right now I'm in the process of buying all new furniture for that living room that you talked about.
I could probably use your leather.
We'll give it to you.
In Morgan Hill. So we're going to replace that. We're replacing a bunch of other furnishings there too. And, things get worn out. As long as furnishings are safe, we'll keep them around for a while. But if they, things start to fall apart, we got to replace them. And so that's the expectation. We try to also, we buy stuff that's better made. And we've learned a lot over the years longer. Where to get stuff. And sometimes we go to, some very high-end stores, but that's where you get better quality. And then things are safer, and they last longer. So we've also learned what stuff works well, best. And whether it's our clients or it's a school or it's, I said, a hotel lobby, things get used, and that's what happens.
So it does beg the question, and without going into a thesis here, a master's thesis, what is the business model then that allows you to actually make these kinds of positive investments? And you mentioned at the very beginning, Lynda, that at the beginning it was an SSI facility, which means that the clients paid a portion of their SSI, which is Social Security disability checks each month.
Social Security insurance from Social Security Administration.
And that's like the baseline. Now it's up to $40 a day. Back then it was probably less.
I want to say maybe $857 a day.
A month.
20 years ago for the SSI.
It was when I first started in '96. It was like 700 and something.
A month.
So it's
Yeah.
So now we're we've it's about double, but it's it's still nowhere near enough. Obviously.
Nowhere near enough to run an adult residential facility on the standard, what we'll call base rate of Social Security,
especially in California.
With the
cost
Montana,
of real estate,
Iowa, maybe different. So then, what can you say about the business model that allows you to bring in enough revenue to continue to support the enhancements in your vision?
Well, Santa Clara County always paid a small patch to their providers, and that's something that we learned about. But we were able to actually set the patch at a rate that allowed us to do these things, and we convinced the counties that it was a good investment.
So they would pay an additional supplemental day or monthly rate on top of what the resident would pay through. It's
a day fee per day, and it's a patch that they pay, and that allows us to do the things that we want to do, and as an organization, we are a for-profit company, but we invest pretty much everything back into what we do. Their properties are investments in a way, and so we want to take care of those, and so we want to make sure that they're really well maintained, and then we also want to create this environment, which I think is really part of what we do. It helped us be so successful, is creating this really healing, healthy environments, and that takes money to do that. We have a great staff of people that help us take care of the properties. We do our own. We have a full-time landscaper. So we try to bring in professionals that can help us keep costs down by overseeing a lot of it ourselves. But it's an investment we've been able to get counties to help us with, and I think it's paid off.
So, and let me just clarify, because a few moments ago you said Santa Clara County doesn't contract with you, but you mentioned a patch
from the original one that we talked about in 2001.
Oh, okay.
That particular one, because they did have patches, and it's for me, and Mike is all about the beauty and environment is so important. For me, what we've been able to do in the last 15 years, and I've been working back with the company almost 13 years now. We've also been able to invest in things that allow us to take clients with higher needs. So we have a client right now that has schizophrenia. He's insulin dependent diabetic, and he has a colostomy bag. That is a lot of care, support, and supervision. You have to check the bag every day, make sure there's no redness around it. So it's not just investing in the properties, which is important, but we're actually investing in our staff to support clients at those higher levels. So I would say out of 240 residents on all 4 of our campuses right now, I would say probably 230 are LPS conserved.
Okay, describe what that means.
Latimer Petra Short Act. So it's conservatorship for 1 year at a time, and then it's renewed every year. Well, to renew that, you have to have 2 psychiatrists do an assessment and review everything and make independent assessment. So we pay for that. So if somebody is, conserved, there is more than just, doing paperwork involved. You're doing assessments, you're meeting with a conservator, you have to make sure you call them all the time. You're doing case conferences. So it's an investment in the property, but it's also an investment in our clients and who we can support. I hear a lot about cherry picking, and I know it's common. However, you shouldn't take somebody who is, honestly, urinary and fecal incontinence if you can't keep everything clean. If somebody is in their depends and they're urine soaked, they can get sores, bed sores, ulcers. So, even things that seem very small, it's expensive to keep people healthy, safe, their skin safe. I think Mike is one of the only people who's invested in truly a dental hygienist in our program. Huge difference. I mean, dentures, and somebody who maybe has schizophrenia or bipolar disorder who has dentures and they're loose and you can't understand them and they get frustrated and you're having a dialogue. There's like all of these, little nuances that I see from my perspective that make a huge difference. I know everyone's like, oh, big deal. You have a dental hygienist. Dental hygienists are huge. I can't emphasize enough how
we see so many people have lost their teeth or they just have a few teeth left. But you see, they don't have a dental hygienist to help them get the meta dental plan. Stephanie Short is a phenomenal. She comes in our place. She'll meet them where they're at. They'll go in their room. She'll look at the dentures. No, it doesn't fit right. She'll call the dentist. The work she does is really beyond compare. I mean, it really is. So can I ask also, in addition to this, I see you've cobbled together different types of contracts that have different enhanced payment rates for on a day or monthly basis, however we look at that. Do you have any purely private pay people?
So private pay has been a little bit challenging. So I would say we've always had probably about 95% of our clients are through county referrals. About 5% of our clients are private pay, who we don't accept commercial insurance. However, we're just on the cusp of having a contract with Kaiser. So that'll be our first one. We've met with them a lot. They have the same recovery beliefs that we do. So we are, trepidatiously going towards that. We've had lots of meetings with them, supporting somebody who's coming out in an acute unit. So that will be like our first putting our toe in the water. But you have to do it with a partnership. Like this is, if they need to stay 30, 60, 90 days, we're going to support them during that time. And I think that Dr. Butler from Kaiser has that same belief in recovery. So I'm feeling very confident about that. But most of our clients that are coming from El Camino Hospital, Stanford, John Muir, more in the Bay Area, and we've had some clients from Los Angeles also. Their families have the resources to pay privately, and some of I can think of a client that was there probably about 9 or 10 years, but it's a small percentage. We're going to try. Sometimes somebody who has insurance is in this odd gray area. They get the least amount of services than somebody who maybe has severe mental illness who's in the county system of care. And it's complicated. It is really complicated.
Everything about mental health financing is complicated.
Yeah, no, and commercial insurance is not going to pay, the residential piece, but our residential piece enhances our clinical services next door. So to me, it all ties in together, and it really does not just promote wellness. It means that you can move back home again, that you can move back with your family or your own apartment. Everybody has come from somewhere different.
So that you just mentioned again, the clinical office next door. This to me seems to be one of the secret sauce elements of Psynergy, is the notion that you have just across the parking lot. I've only been to Morgan Hill. I haven't seen your other places, but the opportunity to connect with one of the clinicians. And I liked what you said, Michael, about they can also come over and see the actual living condition of how people are interacting day to day with their friends or in their room, et cetera. So the way you described it, and you're going to have to unpack a couple of acronyms again. This looks like an IMD without being an IMD. And so can you, in layman's terms, describe what you mean by that?
I think an IMD or a MHRC, there's a huge distinction because MHRCs do not have licensed marriage family therapists, licensed clinical social workers, mental health rehab staff, more credentialed, licensed professional staff. They don't, and they don't because of the IMD exclusion. They can't
explain what that is.
So that means when you're in a secured setting with more than 16 individuals, you cannot bill Medi-Cal. And so I do think that a lot of MHRCs would hire professionals if they could somehow bill those funds. And Mike and I have talked about this a lot, that we believe that if you had those clinical supports, somebody could probably graduate those programs in 90 to 120 days. Whereas we see our clients are coming from those secure settings after 5, 10, 15 years. So that's a whole different conversation. But I think that, we are not an IMD or an MHRC because one, it's a completely separate building, separate address,
separate property. Yeah.
Separate property. They are, our clinics are certified by Medi-Cal, the county Medi-Cal. And so they come out and certify all of our clinics. And right now we have 5 psychiatrists. Dr. Lilly is phenomenal. I don't know if you've met him.
I think so, yes.
Super tall, 6'8". So he's hard to miss.
Hard to miss, right.
And he is our lead medical person. And he, I think he just believes in serving people in the community. Some of our clients, we budget and plan for 14 to 16 hours of mental health services every month for every client. Sometimes it's 22 hours. Sometimes it's 9 or 10 hours, but that's what we really try to obtain, and anywhere from 2 to 3 hours with a psychiatrist every month. I think that's how people get better, is having a good, healthy place to live, good psychiatrists that listen to you. I've always said it's 5 magic things. Psychiatrists you have a relationship with, the medications, the milligrams of the medication, the time you take the medication with the least amount of side effects. That is a lot of magic to make happen.
And that takes someone who can help calibrate those things because they see you. Are you sleepy today? Are you?
And we report back so clients, some people think they sleep wonderful at night. Whereas we show, wow, you were up at 2, you were up at 3, you were up at 4, pacing around, but they'll go to the doctor and say, I slept wonderful. Nothing reflects that you slept wonderful because we see that you were up all night. So having that immediate feedback, no psychiatrist ever gets that. Rarely, unless you're, in a hospital setting, rarely in a boarding care is that psychiatrist going to immediately know how you're doing. Or if you refused your labs, or if you spit out your medication, how could we support you and tell you about how it's important? We do not shame people because of missing medications or refusing medication, but we are going to be really quick to support you and get you in to see the psychiatrist that day to have a conversation about it.
So does that adjacent clinic also serve patients from the broader community also, or just your people?
It's our people primarily. Some people have, some individuals that are private pay have moved back to their home and want to continue seeing Dr. Lilly or maybe our therapist, our team. So I think we have maybe 10 or 11 outpatient, clients that have been through our program. So we know them really well. And then in Sacramento, we've talked about having, the community being able to come in to our outpatient clinics because we have a very robust team there. So that's something that we're kind of talking about with Heidi Allen, who's our contract manager there.
So, Michael, I want to, going back, I'm so glad to finally meet you because you're like Oz behind the screen.
Yes, he is.
I've known
he is
Lynda
Oz.
for many years.
Excellent.
You are like a Phil. We pulled the curtain back, and I just so love your vision and how you have, how it's materialized. So let's talk about Trieste for a moment, because it was actually Lynda that told me about Trieste when I had a study fellowship there. And I was planning to go to Giel, and she said, well, if you're going to Europe, go to Trieste. And so you took your team there. Tell me about that, how you knew about it and why you felt that was important and what happened as a result of exposing them to those values.
Well, it was actually through a friend. I have a friend that lives in London, and she works in mental health. And she had been to Trieste, but she was also running their locked hospital settings in London. And so we told her we wanted to, we wanted to come and visit and see what some of the programs in Europe. And so, we did go and actually get to see her program in London, which was amazing. Mm-hmm. And then from there we ended up, she recommended Italy. She said, you've got to go see this program. And she made all the arrangements for us. She set it up. And so that's how it really started. I didn't know anything about Trieste. It was really through this introduction from a good friend.
And what year would that have been approximately?
It was 2006.
It was shortly, it was about a year after we opened.
Mm-hmm. And what do you remember about that trip and what you learned? Did you find there was some simpatico with how you yourself viewed this? Like, what do you remember?
Don't tell
from
her
that
what
trip?
you really remember.
How about the Alperos?
Because there's some stories there, not to be shared.
It was an amazing trip, and really to see, what I felt was really important was to put the money into the community. That was the big thing. And, and most of the money here in California is put into these long-term lock settings. And by investing, when we invested those dollars in Santa Clara County back, when we first opened up this wonderful program in Santa Clara County, they invested money in the community. And then they saw through that investment that people became stable, stayed out of the locked hospitals, and were successful. And so I learned that, early on by seeing those investments. If you did things the right way and gave our clients the right tools and the right supports, that they could be successful in the community. So it was then many years later, fast forward, when we went to Trieste, we actually saw that in real action, how that really works when you invest all the dollars into the community, how you can really keep people out of these lock settings. And so it was amazing. There are things that we saw that, you probably may or may not be able to do here in this country. It's a different culture, but it was just the whole idea of these community areas where clients could go when they weren't doing well and they were beautiful and had nice furnish. They had same thing, nice furnishings,
nice furniture, yeah,
and something to eat.
Always
and
something to eat. The hospitality is huge.
Yeah, and that was a big part of what we learned, and we did learn a lot from the trip, and actually even in England as well, seeing how they did things very differently.
Do you remember the program in England that you visited?
No, but I the one thing, because I manage our admissions department, and I also manage our outpatient supported housing program, our ACT model. But one of the things is people would live in, and we went with a nurse. They would live in their apartments, and every single day a nurse would go and give them their medication. Not everybody needed that, but some of the people needed that. I said, wow, that's ingenious. But, you couldn't do it that way for regulatory reasons. So if I had somebody in the apartments, I couldn't walk over and give them their medication. It's like such a high bar and a high standard. Even if you're an older person and you have an angel caregiver come, which my daughter was an angel caregiver, she could watch you take your medication. She couldn't give you your medication. You know what? Let's just give them their medication. 100 feet away is a medication room that people give them their medication. It's just like, what's the difference between that med room person walking 100 feet over and giving it? So those are things that impressed me and always kind of stayed in my mind. It's like, wow, this is really possible.
That's meeting people where they're at. And yeah,
exactly.
It's almost like I remember touring Meals on Wheels many years ago, and they said it's actually less about the meal and more about the fact that someone shows up with the meal.
I was a Meal on Wheel volunteer in Santa Cruz. And yes, their face would light up when you would deliver those.
And then you can check on the person, if they haven't bathed for a couple days or whatever. That's the human connection is so important.
Wellness checks.
Yes.
It's like, I think wellness checks are just as it should be, supporting.
So you mentioned that you handle admissions right now. 240 beds, I think you said, in the 4 different campuses. Help me understand, how someone becomes admitted and how long you expect them to stay. Are there people that are there short-term, long-term? And then you also have these independent living apartments on the campus as well. So talk a little bit about the continuum of how you see people moving through the Synergy model.
Is this going to be a 2-hour session? You're going to have to cut some stuff out.
We can do a second version.
So I will start off by saying that we have really great county partners. I mean, from Amador, El Dorado, to Santa Barbara, counties that, one, believe in what we do and see the value in the support and the hospitality. So what will happen is our contract manager or maybe a manager in that department will send us a referral packet. This is somebody who has been there 6 months. They're doing really well. Can you go see them and see what your thoughts are? And so we do. We go and see them. Again, it's been challenging with COVID, which I think has led to some other issues. But we go and see the individual. So we have a modified therapeutic community. And there's 4 phases to that. Phase 1, 2, 3, and 4. Phase 1 is client development, we are going out and meeting someone we're developing them to be our future client. So it's not like, okay, you meet all of our criteria, you can come in. And some people, criteria are very challenging because we do have a hard, fast, criteria, but we'll go see somebody and they haven't had a shower in 2 years. Oddly enough, maybe they don't smell or malodorous, but they need to have showers. And also, it's not fair to have them come in with an expectation like, I can go a year without showering, because our expectation is you take a shower at minimum every other day, every third day. Depends what's going on, right? But we do believe in that cleanliness and that hygiene. So it's not fair to bring somebody in. So we'll start working with them there in the lock facility. We rationalize why we need you to take showers. It's a congregate living.
Is somebody actually visiting the person?
Yes,
is that
in
you?
person. It's not me any longer. It certainly has been for. I know. So counties place their clients in a lot of different places. So Shasta County, great county. They contract with Vista Pacifica and Riverside, a great facility. So we're kind of in the middle. So Jenny Sanchez is our admissions manager. She's amazing. She will drive down and start engaging with that client. We have a beautiful brochure that says, this is where, we'd like you to come live. It's more of an invitation than, okay, you can come in, we have an open bed. And I know it's challenging right now. We haven't been able to do as much client development. Zoom is only so great. But that is our goal, is to go out and see individuals. Now, some people are super, super ready. They're like, why are you even here? We'll go ahead and accept you very quickly once we get all the paperwork done. So they come in, and then we support them in the residence. And as far as how long someone stays, it's, I'm trying to do averages right now. Some of our clients have been in our program for 10 to 13 years, and they need that level of support. And I've seen some of our clients who have, graduated our program, went back to their home county, possibly didn't get enough support. Something happened, and they come back, and then they graduate again, and then they come back. So, a few of those clients, probably 5 or 6 times. At a certain point, this is what you need. This is the level of support that you need. And there's nothing bad about that, And
it can fluctuate in a person's life.
Of course. Yes, yeah. Of course. And one of our clients who did come back and forth 5 or 6 times is living in the apartments and doing very well. So how do you know when that aha moment or when it's going to get right? And also, because this is going on right now, we have a client that her, after many years of being on the same meds, very stable, the Topamax has been declined by insurance, and she's not doing as well now. We've done the TAR, we've done the PA, Dr. Brampton has done everything she can. So now we have to figure out what's going to be the next best thing. And I don't want her she might need some extra support. I'm not sure yet. So it's not always the client's fault when they decompensate, and I think there's like, oh, well, they went and did this and they're back again. It's like, you bad person, you. But a lot of our clients do graduate. They can move up to our apartments, the apartments are right on top of where your doctor is and your therapist. And they're very nice apartments also.
Do they get a Section 8 voucher to do that? Or?
So they still have Social Security, but it's reduced to $790 a month because they have their own kitchen. Mm-hmm. However, most of our clients do come over and still enjoy their meals, and that is part of it. You have to have at least one meal. So we want to see you and see how you're doing. We also go visit them every single day, see how the apartment's doing. Do we need to support you in any way? If you have a big, huge, bundle of laundry, let's help you do that, whatever that looks like. Some of our clients are going to Gavilan College. Some of them are working at Dollar Tree, but we still want them part of our community.
And then will they possibly graduate from those apartments into the community?
The goal was that they would stay in those apartments anywhere from 7 to 9 months. That has been challenging because there's not a lot of comparable places for them to move back to in their home county. A lot of clients do move back to their home county. That's the goal. And some want to stay longer. Maybe they have family in that area. We're pretty flexible. And because of our licensing, adult residential facility, they can stay as long as they need to or want to, and as short as they need to or want to. But having them graduate has been challenging from the apartments.
And largely because of our housing crisis in California.
It is a housing crisis. And, my daughter can't find somewhere to live, so it's everybody. It's all of us.
So, Michael, you referenced a few moments ago the equine therapy, and I've seen that referenced on the website as well. Tell me about that. That is super unusual. And how does it factor into this world that you've created, and how did it originate?
My partners and I had interest in horses, and we've always enjoyed being around horses. And we learned about equine therapy, but it wasn't being used with persons with mental illness. And we thought, well, why not? Why can't it? And we started looking into it. And there were actually a couple programs in the country that were doing some on a limited basis. And Arturo Uribe is one of our partners. He's also he's a licensed he's a clinician, and so he was able to actually help us develop the program to bring the two worlds together, the equine and the therapy part. And early on, he got great successes with it. I mean, there's some great stories I'm sure Lynda can share with you, but clients that had not been doing well just developed these amazing skills through working with horses. And because we loved horses, in general, we thought what a wonderful way for me was getting the clients out of the facility, away from cigarette smoking and into fresh air and, beautiful, sunshine, and then also enjoying the horses and being, even if they didn't participate that much, we're just getting out of the facilities. But the clients love it. And
is that in Santa Clara County also?
We have a place at each of our locations. We found a place where they could do this, and we found more training organizations had never done this before, but it's been very successful, and the clients love it. And and initially they were maybe a little trepidatious about trying this without the mental health background. But we send a licensed therapist. We send small groups, and they get to get a lunch. We get lunch for them. We purchase for them so they can order what they want to, and it's just a great day. They go out and have lunch and do the therapy part with the horses.
So they're not riding the horses; they're interacting with the horses.
Well, there are some that ride.
Okay,
there's some ride if they want to. There are some clients that do ride that feel secure doing that, but it's really more the interaction. It's touching the horse. Mm-hmm. It's leading them around. It's grooming them. It's that whole piece. So
it sounds like there might be one good story you could tell where that had a transformative impact.
Well, I think if you go on our website, there's a story about a client, and we interviewed Dr. Don Shibley. So one of the programs that's been a curriculum that's been created in the last year and a half, while we weren't able to do equine therapy because of COVID, a lot of the farms had shut down. So Don Shibley and Karen Flores created a curriculum for somebody with a psychotic disorder and substance use, dual recovery underneath that. And then she has a DBT model.
What's DBT?
Dialectical behavioral therapy. So our clients who have had trauma, which frankly, a lot of the clients have trauma just from being in those locked facilities. So it's unfortunate that we're sometimes creating further trauma. So I'm trying to do an analysis of our clients who have graduated successfully from our program and who went through the equine therapy graduation, because there's a lot of work that goes into it. There's a curriculum of every week and what they do, what they focus on. But a lot of it is about building trust and feeling safe. I mean, that is the basis. I would say it's the basis of a lot of our program: respect, dignity, cooperation, trust. It's one of the reasons why we made sure that our female rooms are within sight of the help desk. Probably not necessary, but it's just feeling safe. That's what's important.
Well, I like just, radical hospitality, which is what I've drawn from Trieste, and just try to apply these very simple principles in the little bit of work that Heartforward is doing in board and care and supportive housing. I define radical hospitality as: we see you, we hear you, you are safe here, and your voice matters.
Yes.
Yeah. So There you go.
That's I'm going to take that.
You can have it for $100,000.
Yeah.
I'll sell it to you.
Very eloquently said, and it really is true. I mean, all of us want to feel safe walking down the street at night. Whatever that looks like for every individual. But I would say that our equine program is unique. I have not found another program that really works with person with a psychotic thought disorder and horses. And I think there's just something special in its healing. We haven't had any negative experiences from it. If you're intimidated, you don't want to be around the horse, you can just sit down and watch. That's perfectly okay. So there's, we don't push for anything. So you have 3 partners in an equine therapy class. You have the LMFT, the licensed marriage family therapist. You have the horse is part of that treatment team. You have an ES, an equine specialist, who kind of reads the horses and the language. And then you have the client. And it's pretty phenomenal.
I really want to come see that the next time I come see you.
I want to do, actually, I would like to, we were going to do like a whole day, but it's an odd 2 years. And Mike and I were talking about this earlier. On February 1st of 2020, we opened up our largest program ever. And you had to open. We had no idea what was going to come. Had we known, we probably would have held off in some way. But, you have your staff hired, you have a mortgage to pay, and you have clients that still need to be supported and moved out of, secured settings.
Wow. That
Very
was a
challenging.
big lift. Yeah. In those early days when we didn't know how this virus was transmitted and there was no PPE. Right. And yeah, that's huge. Well, let's pivot. We could talk all day about this. Oh my gosh. And I really want people who listen to this and who have family members in board and cares, or they have seen the state of our board and care situation, whether it's in LA County or California. We know we're losing board and cares. I just talked to someone yesterday at our Department of Mental Health. A 60-bed facility in Silver Lake just closed because the family, the father died and the children did not want to keep it going. They could sell that property for a lot of money. So we have a bit of a crisis in this space. And Lynda, you and I have been on several advocacy discussions about that. Let me just ask this final question. Michael, are you interested in expanding? Could we get you to Southern California? What are the obstacles that maybe confront you? And what would it take to bring something like Psynergy to Southern California?
Well, to begin with, it's very tough building in California just to begin with. And when you add the element of you're now building, housing for mental health, then it even makes it that much tougher. And so you go through a lot of hurdles. We actually have a couple, programs we're developing up in the Sacramento area right now, and they've taken many years to get going. So that's a big part of it. It's also the capital, and land is very expensive. If you buy an older building, it has to be rehabbed. That's very, very expensive as well. So there's a big cost and a big, capital infusion that it needs to happen. And finding a bank that will loan you money is really, really tough. I mean, we started with some like Bank of America, and they just didn't like our business model at all, which was very, disappointing because we were doing all of our business there at the time. And we have found some small community banks that have partnered with us, but that's really tough. So that's a big problem, is the capital piece. And then finding the right development team, architects and other professionals that you need that can really help you, maneuver through the process of getting approvals. And so we've learned a lot, I think, during the last few years with the development we've been doing. But it's I think having the funds available and then having the professional team are really the keys to, getting it off the ground and happening quick enough. One program where we actually started like 4 years ago, and it's finally, coming to fruition, hopefully the next, 3 or 4 months. And it's going to be the first that we've done, and one of the few facilities that's going to be specializing in seniors with mental health issues.
Which is a growing cohort of the
huge need. Yeah. And we're going to do something really unique there. We're going to have 24-hour nursing. That's going to allow us to take some minor medical, issues with clients with minor medical issues. But we're going to provide that, and that's going to allow, some of the clients that have not been able to get out of block settings because they need to have that 24-hour nursing. and they're not able to do their own injections for diabetes, for example. And so we're going to be able to do that. So that's going to be a great thing. And it's something that our county partners had been asking us to do for years. I said it's having the staying power to, keep this going for 4 years while we, work through the processes. And we're right now just finishing up. And a recent thing, there was they found a tank underneath the driveway. And so, that stops everything from happening. And you got to get soil engineers in. And California, the things that we need to go through here to build, no one else in the country. I talked to friends I have around the country. I've never heard of anything like that. We had to do like a study on every tree on the property.
Oh my goodness!
For example, and then be concerned about if we put a road in, whether it's going to damage someone else's tree on their property that could be 20, 30 feet from your property line. So it's a tough place to develop real estate to begin with.
I'm hoping that creative thinkers, entrepreneurs, investors, billionaires, whatever, who maybe hear this podcast and want to come alongside you and carry some of that load in Southern California. Maybe, let's see what happens.
That would be great if we could do that.
Yeah. And is LA County one of your contracting?
No. Santa Barbara is the furthest south, and then San Luis Obispo, and then up to Shasta. But I know that people do not want to send their loved ones out of county. However, sometimes there's good reasons for it. Sometimes our county partners right now say, it'd probably be good if they're not around this environment right now, whatever that looks like. So Orange County, San Diego, and Los Angeles counties are ones that we would like to work at. And it's not always for the rest of your life.
No.
It's to have a transition, give you support, and come back just really strong and healthy.
Get on your recovery path.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And I would say, I think 53% of our clients have a secondary diagnosis of addiction, substance use disorder. So we need to treat that better. We have a very strong dual recovery program now. But before we had that, we could only have 8% of our clients. So, that's a struggle. So Mike has always been very strong about our substance use program. Okay, if this is our weakness, how do we strengthen it? Because you don't need to be in a locked setting for longer than necessary because someone cannot manage that. So that's been a huge thing. I think in the last 2 years, we've developed a lot also.
I just want to commend you for the vision that has played out all these many years. It's so inspiring. As you know, we took another trip, a group up to see Psynergy last September. Yeah. It was a first trip for many of us to get out of Dodge, get on an airplane. And you're doing something extraordinary. It's really needed. And I also am so grateful for Lynda's voice and all the advocacy. I'm on multiple Zoom meetings, and she's out.
Coro report. I know there has been a lot.
She's a strong advocate for the system and policy change that needs to happen to protect this type of housing that a lot of people don't think about in the housing continuum. It's not in the homeless housing continuum. It's really in a more medical healthcare continuum, and it's shrinking at an alarming rate, and we need to reverse that trend. So I thank you both for taking the time in your trip this week to Los Angeles to pop in and talk with me. And I hope you have a safe trip home and a wonderful weekend ahead.
Great.
Thank you.
I look forward to your future visit up to
Yeah.
Sacramento. You have to come up and see what we're doing up
Sacramento.
I want to come up.
You're going to be excited about what's happening up there.
All right. I will take that invitation. Thank you both.
All right. Thank you. Appreciate it.
In retrospect, the very first two podcasts that launched Heartforward Conversations from the Heart almost 2 years ago featured a two-part conversation with Teresa Pasquini and Lauren Vitaliata about their commitment to telling the story about housing that heals and what that truly looks like in California. They briefly mentioned Psynergy in those two episodes, and at long last, we are circling back to give Psynergy the attention it deserves. In the interview you just heard, you heard Lynda Kaufman offer some comparisons between Psynergy and what clients might experience in an IMD, which you recall is an Institute for Mental Disease, or an MHRC, a Mental Health Rehabilitation Center. What she meant to convey was that although the IMDs and MHRCs do have clinicians, Due to the IMD exclusion, they do not have the ability to offer daily or weekly one-to-one therapy, one-to-one rehab supports, or one-to-one medication support services, or have the ability to spend 2 to 3 hours with a psychiatrist, which are all services that could be paid for by Medi-Cal. I'll include information in the episode notes about the limitations posed by the IMD exclusion, which is admittedly complicated. It's a federal limitation that restricts Medicaid reimbursements, which are referred to as Medi-Cal in California, only to facilities serving 16 people or less. That topic might be a good subject to unpack for a Season 4 podcast. We are on the final stretch in Season 3. I have been searching high and low for someone to interview on the topic of human rights and how they differ from the context in which we view rights in the United States, namely as constitutional or civil rights. As I have mentioned previously, in other parts of the world, there seemed to be a greater embrace of human rights as outlined in the United Nations Declaration, which was passed in 1948. Why does this matter? I am curious to explore that if we could look at how we treat people living with mental illness in our American society through a human rights lens, might we think differently about how to care for and come alongside people as fellow human beings? Joining me next time will be Dr. Sumitra Patare, who is the director for the Center for Mental Health Law and Policy at the Indian Law Society in Pune, in India. Thank you for your support of this podcast through listening, reviewing, and sharing on your social media. And thank you for your financial support, as this is an independently produced podcast by Heartforward LA. A donor portal is included in the episode notes. And thank you to the team at Verdugo Sound for their production and editing support. I'll see you next time.